It is my intention to feel successful and to attract abundance into my life. One of my own personal secrets for feeling successful and attracting bountiful abundance into my life has been an internal axiom that I use virtually every day of my life. It goes like this: change the way you look at things, and the things you look at change. Once again, change the way you look at things, and the things you look at change. This has always worked for me, and it will work for you too, I can guarantee it. Your intention to feel successful and experience prosperity and abundance depends on what view you have of yourself, the universe, and most important, the field of intention from which success and abundance will come. My little maxim about changing the way you look at things is an extremely powerful tool that will allow you to bring the intention of this chapter into your life. First, examine how you look at things, and then how the spirit of intention does the same. How do you look at life? The way you look at life is essentially a barometer of your expectations based on what you've been taught you're worthy of and capable of achieving. These expectations are largely imposed by external influences such as family, community, and institutions, but they're also influenced by that ever-present inner companion, your ego. These sources of your expectations are largely based on the beliefs of limitation, scarcity, and pessimism about what's possible for you. If these beliefs are the basis for how you look at life, then this perception of the world is what you expect for yourself. Attracting abundance, prosperity, and success from these limiting viewpoints is an absolute impossibility. Take an inventory of how you look at the world, asking yourself how much of your life energy is focused on explaining away potentially optimistic viewpoints by preferring to see the inequities and the inconsistencies and the abundance for all philosophy. Can you change the way you look at things? Can you see potential for prosperity where you've always seen scarcity? Can you change what is simply by changing the way you see it? I say a resounding yes to these questions, and the way to work at changing the way you look at things is to take a hard look at something you may not have previously considered. How does the universal, all-creating field of intention look at life? The field of intention, which is responsible for all creation, is constantly giving. In fact, it knows no bounds to its giving. It just keeps on converting pure, formless spirit into a myriad of material forms. Furthermore, this field of intention gives in unlimited supplies. There's no such concept as shortage or scarcity when it comes to the originating source. So we're looking at two major conceptualizations when we think of the universal mind's natural abundance. The first is that it's perpetually giving, and the second, that it offers an infinite supply. A message to the field of intention that says, please send me more money, is interpreted as you're seeing yourself in a state of scarcity. But this source has no concept of scarcity. It doesn't even know what not having enough money means. Thus, its response back to you will be, here's a state of needing more money because that's how you think, and I'm the mind with which you think, so here's more of what you don't want and don't have. Your ego-dominated response will be, my desires are being denied. But the real truth is, the universal source knows only abundance and giving and will respond with money flowing to you if your intention is, I have enough money and I allow what I already have enough of to continue to flow to me. If you tell the universal mind what you want, it will respond by leaving you in a state of wanting, never arriving and always needing more. If, however, you feel that what you intend to manifest has already manifested, you're unified with your intention. Never allowing a moment of doubt or listening to naysayers, you'll be in the presence of that all-creating field of intention. You can't come from shortage, you can't come from scarcity, and you can't come from wanting. You must come from the same attributes as that which allows everything. This is a key word, allowing. Let's take a look at how allowing is so often ignored in attempts to manifest feeling successful and particularly attracting abundance into our life. The art of allowing. The universal mind of creation is in a constant state of supplying. It never shuts down. It takes no vacations. There are no days off, and it's perpetually giving forth. Everything and everyone, without exception, emanates from this universal mind we're calling intention. So if everything comes from this infinite field of invisible energy, why is it that some are able to partake of it while others seem so separated from it? Allowing this all-giving source into your life means becoming aware of the resistance that you may be placing in the way of the abundance that's always being supplied. There's a long history of countless thoughts that have formed this field of resistance to abundance. This habit of disallowing grew from the belief system that you've cultivated over the years and that you rely on. Furthermore, you've allowed the resistance of others to enter this picture as well, and you surround yourself with the need for their approval in these matters. You solicit their resistant opinions, read newspaper accounts of all of those who failed to manifest the jobs of their choice, examine government reports about the poor job prospects and the declining economy, watch the television reports belaboring the sorry state of affairs in the world, and your resistance becomes even more convincingly entrenched. You've aligned yourself with the proponents of disallowing. What you need to do is to look at this belief system and all of the factors that continue to support it and say, it's too big of a job to change the entire thing. Instead, I'm going to start changing the thoughts that activate disallowing right here, right now. It doesn't matter what you thought before or for how long or how many pressures you're under to maintain your resistance. Instead, stop activating disallowing thoughts today, one thought at a time. You can do so by stating, I feel successful. I intend to feel the abundance that is here now. Repeat these words or create your arrangement of words which continually inundate your thoughts during your waking hours with a new belief of being successful and abundant. Those thoughts will then become what you say in silent prayer-like messages to yourself. I am success. I am abundance. When you're success itself, when you're abundance itself, you're in harmony with the all-creating source, and it will do the only thing it knows how to do. It will be endlessly giving and forthcoming with that which has no resistance to it, namely you and your thoughts. As you practice allowing and living the faith of least resistance, success is no longer something you choose, it's something that you are. Abundance no longer eludes you, you are it, and it is you. It flows unimpeded beyond your resistance. Herein lies another clue to the free flow of abundance. You must avoid becoming attached to and hoarding what shows up in your life. Abundance, detachment, and your feelings. While it's crucial for you to have a firm vibrational matchup with the all-creating abundance of intention, it's just as crucial for you to know that you can't hang on to and own any of the abundance that will be coming your way. This is because the you that would like to hang on to and become attached to your success and your wealth is not really you. It's that troublesome ego of yours. You're not what you have, and you're not what you do. You're an infinite, divine being disguised as a successful person who has accumulated a certain amount of stuff. But the stuff is not you. This is why you must avoid being attached to it in any way. Genuinely feeling abundant and successful is possible when you detach yourself from the things you desire and allow them to flow to you, and just as important, through you. Anything that inhibits the flow of energy stops the creating process of intention right where the obstacle is erected. Attachment is one such roadblock. When you hang on to that which arrives rather than allowing it to move through you, you stop the flow. You hoard it or decide to own it, and the flow becomes disrupted. You must keep it circulating, always knowing that nothing can stop it from coming into your life except any resistance you place in its way. Your feelings and your emotions are sensational barometers for detecting resistance and evaluating your ability to experience success and abundance. Paying attention to your feelings. Your emotions are the inner experience that tell you how much of the divine energy you're summoning for the manifestation of your desires. Feelings can be measuring tools that gauge how you're doing in the manifestation process. An exceptionally positive emotional response indicates that you're summoning the divine energy of intention and allowing that energy to flow to you in a non-resistant manner. Feelings of passion, pure bliss, reverence, unmitigated optimism, unquestioned trust, and even illumination indicate that your desire to manifest success and abundance, for example, have an extremely strong pulling power from the universal source directly to you. You must learn to pay close attention to the presence of these feelings, agents which are in charge of how you clean and purify the connecting link to intention. These emotions tell you precisely how much of the life force you're summoning and how much pulling power you have going for you at that moment. Your feelings indicate how well you're attracting the energy necessary for the fulfillment of your desires. Strong feelings of despair, anxiety, blame, hate, fear, shame, and anger, they're all sending you the message that you want success and abundance, but you don't believe it's possible for you. These negative feelings are your clues to get busy and balance your desires with those of the universal mind of intention, which is the only source of that which you desire. Negative emotions tell you that your pulling power from intention is weak or even non-existent. Positive emotions tell you that you're connecting to and accessing this power of intention. Concerning abundance, one of the most effective ways to increase that pulling power from intention to you is to take the focus off of dollars and place it on creating abundant friendship, security, happiness, health, and even high energy. It's here that you begin to feel those higher emotions, which let you know that you're back in the match game with the all-creating source. As you focus on having abundant happiness, health, security, and friendships, the means for acquiring all of this will be flowing directly toward you. Money is only one of those means, and the faster your vibrational energy around abundance radiates, the more money will show up in significant amounts. These positive feelings as indicators of your pulling power for success and abundance will put you into an active mode for co-creating your intentions. I'm not suggesting that you just have to sit around and wait for everything to fall into place. I'm suggesting that by declaring, I intend to feel successful and attract prosperity, your emotional energy will shift and you'll act as if what you desire were already true. Your actions will be in harmony with the faces of intention, and you'll be provided with what you are rather than attempting to be provided with what's missing. Making your intention your reality. That is, to feel successful and to attract abundance right into your life. Step 1. See the world as an abundant, providing, friendly place. In this first step, you're receptive to a world that provides rather than one that restricts. You'll see a world that wants you to be successful and abundant rather than one that conspires against you. Step 2. Affirm, I attract success and abundance into my life because that's who I am. This puts you into vibratory harmony with your source. Your goal is to eliminate any distance between what you desire and that from which you pull it into your life. Abundance and success aren't out there waiting to show up for you. You are already it, and the source can only provide you with what it is, and consequently, what you are already. Step 3. Stay in an attitude of allowing. In an attitude of allowing, all resistance in the form of thoughts of negativity or doubt are replaced with simply knowing that you and your source are one and the same. Picture the abundance you desire freely flowing directly to you. Refuse to do anything or have any thought that compromises your alignment with source energy. Step 4. Use your present moments to activate thoughts that are in harmony with the 7 faces of intention. The key phrase here is present moments. Notice right now, in this very moment, if you're thinking that it's hopeless at this stage of your life to change the thoughts that comprise your belief system. Do you defeat yourself with thoughts of having had such a long life practicing affirmations of scarcity and creating resistance to your success and abundance that you don't have enough time left to counterbalance the thoughts that comprise your past belief system? Make the choice to let go of that lifetime of beliefs and begin activating thoughts right now, right here, that allow you to feel good. Wanting to feel good is synonymous with wanting to feel God. Remember, God is good, and all that God created was good. Step 5. Initiate actions that support your feelings of abundance and success. Here the key word is actions. I've been calling this acting as if, or thinking from the end, and acting that way yourself. Put your body into a gear that pushes you toward abundance and feeling successful. Act on those passionate emotions as if the abundance and success you seek is already here. Speak to strangers with passion in your voice. Answer the telephone in an inspired way. Do a job interview from the place of confidence and joy. Read the books that mysteriously show up, and pay close attention to conversations that seem to indicate you're being called to something new. Step 6. Remember that your prosperity and success will benefit others and that no one lacks abundance because you've opted for it. Once again, the supply is unlimited. The more you partake of the universal generosity, the more you'll have to share with others. Step 7. Monitor your emotions as a guidance system for your connection to the universal mind of intention. When you're experiencing low-energy emotions of rage, anger, hatred, anxiety, despair, and the like, that's a clue that while your desires may be strong, they're completely out of sync with the field of intention. Remind yourself in these moments that you want to feel good, and see if you can activate a thought that supports your feeling good. Step 8. Become as generous to the world with your abundance as the field of intention is to you. Don't stop the flow of abundant energy by hoarding or owning what you receive. Keep it moving. Use your prosperity in the service of others and for causes greater than your ego. The more you practice detachment, the more you'll stay in vibratory harmony with the all-giving source of everything. Step 9. Devote the necessary time to meditate on the spirit within as the source of your success and abundance. There's no substitute for the practice of meditation. This is particularly relevant with abundance. You must have an understanding that your consciousness of the presence is your supply. By repeating the sound that is the name of God as a mantra, you're using a technique for manifesting as ancient as recorded history. I am particularly drawn to this form of meditation I've mentioned previously called japa. I know it works. I've written an entire book about it called Getting in the Gap, and I've also provided a CD and mentioned it before because I know how powerful it can be in helping you to attract abundance or anything you like into your life. And finally, step 10. Develop an attitude of gratitude for all that manifests into your life. Be thankful and filled with awe and appreciation, even if what you desire hasn't arrived yet. Even the darkest days of your life are to be looked on with gratitude. Everything coming from Source is on purpose. Be thankful while empowering your reconnection to that from which you and everything else originated. The energy that creates worlds and universes is within you. It works through attraction and energy. Everything vibrates. Everything has a vibratory frequency. As St. Paul once said, God is able to provide you with every blessing in abundance.
Thank you. You're very, very kind. Thank you. Welcome to a wonderful day. It may be the first time that Katie and I have been together on stage, working together as a team, looking at some of the things that I think are going to be very, very powerful and a life-changing day. I have always been a huge, huge fan of hers. Have done the work myself, and you're all in for a great treat this afternoon. I have undertaken a project. I started on January the 1st of this year, and I'll be finishing it on December the 31st. It's a new book that I'm living. For the first time, I think, in my life, I've begun to do something that is having more of an impact on me than I think it'll have on anyone who reads it. It has changed my life in a very profound and dramatic way every day. I was listening to the whole controversy around James Fry and A Million Little Pieces. Most of you know what I'm speaking about, I think, don't you? Well, there was a huge bestseller last year. It's called A Million Little Pieces, and it was about a young man who had been a drug addict and an alcoholic, had tried every kind of drug that there was, and ended up at the beginning of the book being dropped off up in Minnesota at a rehab center. And the story is a story of his experience going through 6 weeks of intense rehab, trying to get himself clean from this life of drugs that he had been participating in since he was about 15 or 16 years old, and he was in his late 20s at this time. Well, it became a very hugely popular bestseller because it was beautifully written, and he went on Oprah, and then they discovered that it was just an amazing insight. They found out that someone who does drugs doesn't always tell the truth. As my daughter said, duh. It was published as a memoir, and there's sort of a loose interpretation of what it means to write a memoir, and whether this comes under the category of fiction or nonfiction, or whether you're allowed to play with facts and so on. And all of this controversy could have been resolved with a brief little paragraph at the beginning of the book that said some of the facts in the book have been altered to make the story better, or to protect the people who were a part of the experience that he went through or whatever, but that wasn't in there. And so he went on Oprah, and then she found out that he had fabricated some of the details. But in the whole process of all of that, Oprah being concerned about what had it done for her reputation and whether or not these facts were true or not, was the much larger picture of how many people who were really profoundly impacted as drug addicts and alcoholics, and were able to come out of that world, that imprisoned world. And it's very close to me in my life, because in my own family I have one of my children who right now, today, is profoundly struggling with that very same thing, and has been for the past 10 years or so. So I'm sensitive to it as well. Anyway, A Million Little Pieces was deeply impactful to many, many people. And the controversy stirred, and I saw this young man being raked through the coals because he had changed some of the facts and so on, and that became the whole emphasis on this book. So I called James and told him that I would be absolutely willing to publish anything that he wrote in the future. And my publisher agreed to that. While he was going through this rehabilitation experience of his, he came across a book that I had read when I was taking a philosophy course back at the university, at the University of Michigan in 1965, I think it was, or 1966. It's a book that was written 2,500 years ago. I remember when I was reading it, I was touched by it, and I remember saying, it's about time they wrote something like this. And then I found out that that old line that when the student is ready, the teachers will appear, became very, very clear, because it had been out there for thousands of years, 500 years before the Bible for the New Testament was even thought of. And the book is called the Tao Te Ching, or the Book of the Way. And it's the foundation for the practice. It's not a religion, as I've been researching Taoism, which is spelled T-A-O-I-S-M, T-A-O, the Tao. The word Tao is just a word that means the way. And the opening line of the Tao says, the Tao that can be named is not the Tao. So the minute that you put a label on it, you've lost it. It is something that transcends dualities, beginnings and ends. It's the word for the source, the word for all that is. And one of the most profound teachings of the Tao is that the Tao does nothing, but it leaves nothing undone. And it's a really profound teaching. I remember when I sat down to write the book, Inspiration, Your Ultimate Calling. And I called it Your Ultimate Calling because I really believed that it is our calling to live an inspired life. And an inspired life is a life in which we return ourselves back to spirit. One of the verses in the Tao speaks about the return trip, that those who understand the way understand that we show up here from an invisible source, and our whole objective in being here is to return to it. It's a return trip. And constantly I call this the state of God realization, that it's within each and every one of us. If we decide that we're going to make this return trip and live a God-realized life, which has absolutely nothing to do with religion. It's funny, I was reading Matthew Fox last night, Original Blessing, his answer to original sin. And I came across a quote from Carl Jung. Now, I was a Jungian therapist. I studied Carl Jung a great deal when I was in a doctoral student. And Carl Jung, I didn't know that he had said this. I looked up the quote last night. He said, the surest way to lose your soul is to believe in a God outside of yourself. And then he said, there's an awful lot of people who have gone to church on a regular basis who've been on a one-way trip to losing their soul, who believe in something that is external to ourselves. And if you begin to study this idea of a God or a source or a spirit or an intelligence that is not something that is external to you, but that in fact is you, is the source of all of us. In the Tao, they call this the world of the 10,000 things. And the 10,000 things is just the ultimate number to represent everything that is in the material world. So that everything that originates in the world of source, in the world of non-being, all being comes from that place. And all the great spiritual texts that have been written about this have always intrigued me, and the number around it is, when I sat down to write Inspiration, I knew that I was going to write 18 chapters. And somehow that number has always been intriguing. You know? And it's an interesting in spiritual text that the number 18 stands for one infinite source. One infinite source, 18. So all of you born on the 18th, you know, you get something for nothing today. Some advice, that's what you get. So, but reading the Bhagavad Gita, the Hindu Bible, the text that was written thousands of years ago, also contemporaneously with the Tao, had 18 verses in it, 18 chapters. It's Krishna, God, speaking to his disciple Arjuna, who is on a battlefield and about to go into battle, and his charioteer, who's just ready to take him into this battle, and the two armies are lined up on either side of this great field, and they're off to go and slaughter each other. And as they're getting ready to make this one more attempt at war and killing and battles and so on, Arjuna speaks to his charioteer, who is really God, speaking to him. And in 18 verses, he gives him the book that Gandhi read every day and based his life upon, the Bhagavad Gita, the way of the Lord. And you can all read it in about an hour and a half or 2 hours. You can read the whole Bhagavad Gita, and the same with the Tao. But you can spend a lifetime studying it and contemplating it and being involved in it. It's the same number of holes on a golf course. I don't know, there's something about that maybe has something. And so I hadn't really thought about this, and then when I heard James Fry speaking, when I read the book and then listened to him on a few of the interviews, and then read the book even more carefully, I discovered that the only thing that helped him through the entire process of this recovery and overcoming this horrendous addiction from heroin and crack cocaine and vodka and everything that you could possibly think of was reading the Tao. And I decided that if it had that kind of an impact on him, and I sent a copy to my daughter, who, as I said, struggles with these addictions, I decided that I was going to go back and look at the Tao again. And as I opened it up, guess how many verses, how many chapters there are in the Tao? No, there are not 18. But it's the same number. 81. Infinite source once. Infinite source once. 1881. And I had done 18 chapters for the inspiration books. And as I talked to James Fry, I discovered that he had picked up a copy of the Tao Te Ching. Now, the Tao Te Ching has, I'm just giving a conservative estimate. I think there are maybe 2,500 to 3,000 translations of the Tao. So that when you read the Tao, you're reading somebody's translation of it. And it's ancient Chinese language written at the same time. He was a contemporary of Confucius. So it goes way back. and trying to find out exactly the idioms and what was being said here, because Lao Tzu never wrote a word of it from all the things that I could find out about it. He just dictated it as he decided to leave this world that he was in and go off and live in harmony with the Tao. And his dictation was recorded supposedly by a gatekeeper, and it has survived all of these years. But the translation that James read and studied and practiced every day, and throughout A Million Little Pieces, he would have these little references to how what was said in the Tao really made sense to him in terms of his sobriety and in terms of him changing what it is that he was living and experiencing. And he decided that this was perhaps the most important book he had ever read, and it just kept coming back at me. So there are always weird kind of, Jung called them synchronicities, but there's these, it just kept coming back at me. And so I went and found the edition of the Tao that he had read that touched him so deeply, and he had forgotten also to give credit to the translator of this particular book, but he was advised to do so, and he did in future editions, as well as adding a little paragraph as a disclaimer, because to me it was important that the words that's in there be circulated to as many people who are struggling with addictions as possible. So this one that he read was translated by a fellow named Stephen Mitchell, and I found that out when I was up in Wyoming with Katie, Byron Katie, who sits right over here in the front row, and you'll be listening to this afternoon, one of the most fascinating afternoons of your life. Oh, by the way, this is Katie's husband. She is married to Stephen Mitchell, and he's sitting right there. Stand up, Stephen. I want all of you to meet. He's one of the great scholars alive today, Stephen Mitchell. And I've read about 25 translations of the Tao this year, and this is by far my favorite. He put it into words that are applicable to all of us today. I don't think we have that here, but you can find it in bookstores any place. So as I am writing, I decided that I was going to write a book called Change the Way You Look at Life and the Life You're Living Changes. Living the Tao. And since January the 1st of this year, I have been reading, I have this wonderful job. It's just the greatest job. I can't even visualize that I could have predicted this when I was, bagging groceries and delivering pizzas back in Detroit in the 1950s. But this wonderful job, and they pay me. You can't even believe, I don't even want to tell you what they pay me for doing it, but I can't even count it. I need new calculators, all right? And my job is to read a verse of the Tao Te Ching, the first verse, and to contemplate it. Some of this is going to be weird, but, when you get to be 66, it's... you just don't care anymore, And so if it sounds a little strange, it sounds a little strange. But I have created this space where I live over on Maui. And I have drawings of Lao Tzu. There was no cameras in those days. You may remember 2,500 years ago, people had just started crawling out of caves in some places. But there are renderings, there are drawings, there are people who have different visions and versions of what he looked like. He's often portrayed on an ox. And so my job is to take these 81 verses and to read one of them and then to contemplate it for 2 or 3 days. Just to walk and to swim, to do yoga, to do all of the things that are just a part of my life every day, and then to sit down in this spectacular, beautiful space that I have created, a place where there are statues and there are crystals and there are photos of my children and there are just wonderful mementos, and it's like it's an energy place. By the way, I encourage you to do this sort of thing in your own home, to find a place, someplace, a corner of a room someplace, and make it your sacred spot. This is a place where I always have a candle burning, as long as I'm awake. Actually, I have 3 candles burning. And when I'm in that space, when I walk by it, it's like a dining room in a place on Maui. And as I walk by it, the energy shifts in the room, in the house. And I feel myself being drawn into it. And sometimes it feels like it's beckoning me. In fact, I feel it right now. So I got to leave. I'm sorry, I've got to, no. And as I walk by it and it entices me to go in there, I get up, if you saw the Inspiration PBS special, I get up 3:15 every morning or so, between 3 and 4 a.m. Because it's a very special time, and it's, again, something that I encourage you to think about. As Rumi said, the breeze at dawn has secrets to tell you. Do not go back to sleep. Do not go back to sleep. Do not go back to sleep. And there's very nurturing, significant message in that poem of Rumi. Do not go back to sleep. Because if you can fight the desire, almost everyone wakes up sometime between 3 and 4 o'clock in the morning. When you're my age, you usually think, well, it's prostate time, go pee and get back to bed. It's no big deal, all right? But there's a calling. These things that occur to us, that happen to us, that are sort of habitual with us. When we wake up, we look at the clock, and very often it'll be the same time. Oftentimes it'll be the exact same moment that we find ourselves awakening, being called to an awakening. That's great. Or we have all these great ideas, and we say, you know what, tomorrow I'm going to do this. Tomorrow I'm getting up. But right now, you know, if I were to get up right now, let's see if I got up right this moment, and it's 3:30, and I've got to go to work, and I'll be 2 hours deficient, so I'm going to be tired all day long. If I do that, I better get to sleep instead. And this is just conditioned thinking. It's thoughts. And a big part of today's presentation that Katie and I agreed on is that this is going to be about your thoughts, about what kind of thoughts that you have. How do you think? And the question that you're going to be asking yourself is very often is the thought that I'm thinking, is it a thought that is true, or is it a thought that is not true? Is there falsehood built into the thoughts? Because the estimate is that we have about 60,000 separate thoughts every day. The only problem is we have the same 60,000 today that we had yesterday. And then we're going to have the same 60,000 again tomorrow. And then you begin to ask yourself the question of these separate 60,000 thoughts that are just constantly whipping through my consciousness all the time, just seem to be coming out of nowhere. How many of them are true? I mean, how many of them can bear up to the test of truth, that these things are true? Because when you have a thought in your head that isn't true, it changes your whole physiology. What you'll be able to see, particularly this afternoon, as Katie does her work up here with you, is that thoughts that are not true are not just thoughts that keep you from being happy. They're not just thoughts that keep you from having a divine relationship. They're not just thoughts that keep you from attracting abundance into your life. They are thoughts that weaken you physically. These are muscle tests, kinesiology. The heart is a muscle. Every organ of your body is supported by and surrounded by muscles. So that when you're having thoughts, any kind of a thought that is not true, that thought is shortening your life. Literally shortening your life. I have now finished 67 verses of the Tao. And I've written 67 essays on when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. And this isn't just a clever play on words here. This is a quantum truth. As my friend Deepak Chopra has often said to me, quantum physics is not only stranger than you think it is, it's stranger than you can think. So that if you look at your origination, the place that you came from, this thing that Lao Tzu called the Tao, this great source that is everywhere. There is no place that it is not. And yet it is doing nothing. And yet it leaves nothing undone. If you go out and just go for a walk this afternoon when you get home, just look at the perfection of all that is. Just look at the clouds and look at the sky and look at the ocean and look at the trees and look at the leaves, and even more important, look at the space between the leaves. And look at the invisibleness and the perfection of how everything is. There's a constancy, if you will. And this constancy is always there. And your goal, my goal, in the time that I have with you here today, is to convince you to go to a place within yourself where you can emulate that divine perfection which requires you to do nothing, which never uses force, which never pushes itself, which recognizes something. I'm going to read to you just one of the verses of the Tao and a little bit of what I wrote about it. And I seldom read to an audience because I don't like being read to myself. But I'm just going to share a little bit of this. Here's what Lao Tzu said in verse 29. Do you think you can take over the universe and improve it? I do not believe it can be done. Everything under heaven is a sacred vessel and cannot be controlled. Trying to control leads to ruin. Trying to grasp, we lose. Allow your life to unfold naturally. Know that it too is a vessel of perfection. Just as you breathe in, breathe out. There is a time for being ahead, a time for being behind, a time for being in motion, a time for being at rest, a time for being vigorous, a time for being exhausted, a time for being safe, a time for being in danger. To the sage, all of life is a movement toward perfection. So what need has he for the excessive, the extravagant, or the extreme? There's a time for everything. Imagine if you knew this. If you really knew that what you were experiencing emotionally in your life was a part of what there is a time for, and that you're not really doing anything. Lao Tzu says it over and over again. You're not doing anything. You're being done. You're being done right now. You're one of the 10,000 things. And it is all being done, all of it. Like I do yoga every morning, or almost every morning, 5-6 days a week. I do this 90-minute Bikram yoga, this hot yoga. And this has helped me so much with just that simple little thing, just remembering what it says in verse 29 of the Tao. That there are times when you're in the midst of yoga, when you have a position where you have to put this foot out, and you have to turn this one down, and you have to get down here like this, and you have to take this arm, and I'm going to do it. And you have to do that for 60 seconds in a 110-degree room. That's after doing many other postures as well. There was a time when I would do that and I'd be so exhausted, and all I could think about was, when is this 60 seconds going to be up? Oh my God, when are we going to get through with this posture? When are we going to get on to where I can lie down on the floor? And finally, and I began to realize as this doing the Tao thing has really changed me dramatically, so that now when I'm in that position with one arm down and one arm up, and it is exhausting, and you're stretching, and you've got your arm right next to your ear, and you're holding on, that you say to yourself, there's a time for being exhausted, and there's a time for rest. There's a time for things not to work out. Imagine if you knew that in the midst of my working with my daughter, for example, when I see the struggle that she's going to, and I can stand back and say, there's a time. There's a time for her to experience this. And there's a time for her not to experience it. If you read Katie's life, you'll see that there was a time for deep depression. There was a time for fear. There was a time for anger and worry and despair, deep despair. And when you're in those things, if you could step outside of yourself and look at it and say, there's also a time for its opposite. As long as I'm incarnated into a physical world, there's a time for all of it. And as you do, you get to a new place in your life where you begin to look at all the things that are happening to you, because you remember verse 40 of the Tao says, it's all about returning. It's all about returning. Returning to what? Returning to the place from which you originated. The first 9 months of your life, you lived inside of your mother's womb in water. And during those whole 9 months, nobody could get in there and mess around with you. Nobody could get in there and get you to worry about anything. You didn't have sonograms that you'd look at and say, my God, I don't have a nose yet. What the hell's going on? I sure hope I get a nose. And you got into nose therapy and you worry about it. What if it doesn't happen? You don't do that. And all of a sudden, perfectly, it all unfolds in exactly the way it's going to unfold, independent of your opinion about it. You're not doing anything. Nothing is left undone. You're being done. You're being completed. And you were totally, completely at peace with it. You were surrendered to it. You allowed it. It wasn't a struggle. It wasn't. And then you popped out of there. And then you said, thank you, God. Thank you, Tao. Thank you, Source. We'll take over from here. And that was the biggest mistake. All of a sudden, you took over. And you edged God out. E-G-O. You edged God out. And you took on an ego, didn't you? And what is an ego? It's just an idea. Just an idea about who you are. Instead of being a piece of God, a piece of the Source, you decided, and those around you decided, that you were something different. And if you studied quantum physics and you took the tiny little particle that began you and you tried to find out where it came from and reduced it down to its tiniest subatomic properties, ultimately you would discover what Lao Tzu knew, that it's the spirit that gives life, that you didn't come from a particle, that particles do not create particles, particles do not come from particles. Originally, all particles come from an energy, a field of energy that has no beginnings and no ends and no boundaries. And that's who you are. And returning back to that, and letting go of the idea that who you are is what you have, and who you are is who you control. I don't think there's any more all-pervasive theme in the Tao Te Ching than the idea of being a non-interferer. Do you, Stephen? I mean, isn't it? It's about not interfering, isn't it? It's about letting go. It's about allowing. It's about detaching. It's about disconnecting yourself from this belief that you are in charge of other people. I'm the father of 8 children and the father of motivation. That's what they tell me, so I've got... And as this father of 8 children, one of the things that I've recognized and what has made me, I think, a better parent, particularly even since I've been doing this, is my willingness to, I call it the bite your tongue verse of the Tao. Just hang back just for a second, just as you're about to interfere, just as you're about to lay it on and tell somebody else how they should be and what they should do and how they should do it, you step back and realize that what Khalil Gibran, the great Lebanese poet, in writing in the Prophet, said was just a basic truth. Your children are not your children. They are the products of life's longing for itself. They come through you, but not for you. And you step back, and I can't even begin to tell you how freeing it is to realize that you don't have anything to do. You don't have anyone to control. You can be at peace. And I watch, and I've become much more of an observer, even on airplanes. I was in London 5 days ago. And I don't know if you've flown in and out of Heathrow lately, but things have really changed. We couldn't take anything on the plane. The terrorists, whoever they are selling fear, and we respond with more fear. Every time you use force, you create a counterforce, and then another counterforce, and before you know, and the Tao teaches us all. I mean, one of the great lessons in the Tao is that any country that has its primary resources and its energy placed on building weapons is not of the Tao. And those countries that have their consciousness located in the Tao put their energy into tractors and building homes and growing food, not building weapons. I saw a movie not too long ago with Nicolas Cage about warlords or something, the Lords of War, I think it was something like that. One of those alarming things about how much energy we are in the world creating, energy to destroy ourselves, that we have literally created from our consciousness enough weaponry on this planet to eliminate all life within just a few moments. It's all there. It's all there for us. We've allowed ourselves to move so far away from the great teachings of the great spiritual masters. And we believe that we're a Christian nation or that we're a spiritual nation when we find ourselves having moved away from these simple principles and then getting upset with other people because we can have these kind of weapons but they can't, and we don't look hard enough at ourselves and all the ways that we have deflected ourselves from the greatest teachings of all of the great spiritual masters. When you start in yoga, I have a 1-year anniversary of doing yoga is October the 1st. That's another thing that if I can encourage even 2 or 3 of you to just get started in, no matter what. Because I was a runner my whole life. I ran, many of you possibly, I'm in many, many marathons. I ran ultra marathons, 52 miles without stopping. Yeah. And many marathons, the Greek marathon. And I got to a point in my life where I wanted to continue to be in shape and to exercise and to keep myself strong and so on. But my back and my joints and my knees and all of those things just wouldn't allow for that kind of work. So I found something which is great. You put a mat here in front of you and you don't have to leave. This is as far as you travel. This is it. That's it. You don't have to go anywhere. If I used to want to run 8 miles, I had to run 4 miles that way and come back 4 miles. Now you can do the equivalent of 8 miles and you just have to go here. That's it. And it's an ancient practice. It's a life-giving, life-loving, profound experience. Not only does it teach you about keeping your cardiovascular system in shape and keeping yourself physically fit and so on, but it allows you also to exercise every organ of your body, including the mind. And it's something I encourage you to look at and think about. The word yoga means union. Union. It's something I just discovered experientially in the past year, but it's something that you can really put into practice and start changing the way you feel and the way you look at everything. There's no better feeling after 90 minutes of yoga than that wonderful connection that you feel to God, that source. So in the process of doing this yoga, I have discovered certain things to teach you and certain things that need to be improved upon. There are 3 factors that you learn when you go into yoga. It teaches you balance, it teaches you flexibility, and it teaches you strength. Now, most of the women, when they start yoga, are pretty good at balance and flexibility, but are very deficient in strength. Most of the men can go in there, they can do the strength ones, but they try to stand up on one leg and move it up like this, and they fall over just instantly, because balance is something that we get. So it gives you an opportunity to work on all of them. So flexibility, strength, and balance. And I was thinking about those three things and how they apply in all of our lives, particularly as I'm writing about the Tao. And then I decided to write these principles for living a life that's in balance. And being in balance, to me, is about alignment. And I'd like to just take you down that path just a little bit here this morning about what it means to get yourself back into balance in your life. We are out of balance emotionally and in our minds and what we are capable of attracting and doing with ourselves because we're not aligned with our source. We're not aligned with Tao. When you are aligned, it means that whatever thoughts that you have about what it is that you would like to do, that what you would like to create, about how you would like your relationships to go, about your ability to attract prosperity into your life, about your ability or your capacity to heal yourself of anything that might come your way, anything at all that might come your way. If you have the willingness to give the same energy to what it is that you are desiring for yourself. As Katie was going through, can I talk about your eye? Is that okay? Okay. I'm asking permission in front of thousands of people here. But Katie was literally going blind and had to go through corneal implants from cadavers twice. And as she was getting ready and prepared to do the last one, we were talking, and I would ask her about it. And what always impressed me so much was she would give the kind of energy to what she wanted rather than having it be totally, completely out of balance. And that's what this is all about. So that as she was going in to have a cornea transplanted from a dead person into her eye so that she could see, talk about seeing through another person's eyes, always she would say to me, no, it's going to work out fine. It's going to be great. It is my intention that, and there was never this out of balance kind of thinking which says, this is what I want. This is what I want to attract. This is what I want to create for myself, whatever it might be. In this book, I deal with it in every single area of our lives. I think it's true in addictions and overcoming addictions. It's true if you have obesity problems or weight problems, issues like that. I think it's true in overcoming relationship struggles or difficulties. The opening chapter says, an infinity of forests lies dormant within the dreams of one acorn. Listen to that. An infinity of forests lies dormant within the dreams of one acorn. One little seed has a dream, and that dream is so powerful that it can manifest and create just from that dream inside of that, and it literally can do that. The potential that is in the dreams of this tiny little acorn can bring and attract to the world an endless number of trees. I used to say, anyone can count the number of seeds in an apple, but no one can count the number of apples in one seed. When you have dreams or desires or things that you would like to create or attract for yourself into your life, and they're way up here, they're big. But the Tao says that sages never attempt big things. They don't have to do big things. It says in there's a line that says you can get anywhere from here. As long as you're here in your mind, as long as you stay here with what is true. 19 years ago, I drank every day. I never was drunk. It wasn't like I was out there, out of control or anything. I drank every day. And I had a teacher in India who said, if you want to reach the level of consciousness that I would like you to be able to go to, you'll have to live a life of sobriety. And I said, I have no trouble with sobriety. I just like to have a few beers every day, if you don't mind, after I run. He said, no, you'll have to get yourself to a place where so as a sage, if you think of yourself as a sage and you want to undertake this thing of giving up drinking or losing 75 pounds or attracting great wealth into your life or building a great bridge across a divide, whatever it is that you might want to undertake. I think about it when I sit down to write a book. I mean, if you sit down and know that you've got to create 300 or 400 pages that has to be legible and it has to all fit together and it has to make sense and it all has to come from your mind. That's just too big. And people who think big generally end up doing nothing because it's just too daunting a task to do big. But anybody can do here. Anybody can do now. Anybody can do this moment. And so what do you do? It's what I said to my daughter this morning. I say it to her every morning when I pick up the phone, wherever I am. Today is a sober day. Just today. Don't undertake giving up anything big like that. Don't undertake the idea of I've been overweight my whole life, or I've been addicted to something my whole life, and I just want to change that. Let go of that. The great sages don't do difficult things because they never see difficult things. There's nothing difficult out there when all you have to do today is stop smoking. Today. And people say, but it's really difficult. It's really difficult to quit smoking. I said, where do you come up with that? Where do you come up? Is that true? You'll hear Katie this afternoon ask you that question. Is this true? Can you prove that it's true? You'll see. I just want you to, if you haven't seen her do it. She's the master. She's the best in the world at it. Is it true that it's difficult to quit smoking? Hell no, it's not true. What's difficult is smoking. That's what's difficult. That's true. If you smoke, you got to take your money and you got to go out and you got to buy tobacco. And then you've got to carry cigarettes with you wherever you go. And you have to carry fire with you all the time. So now you got to carry tobacco, fire, and you got to give up your money. And we've hardly even gotten started. Now you got to dispose of ashes wherever you go. So you need a disposal place to dispose of the, now you got to get rid of cigarette butts, and you have to keep your hands because your hands start to smell after a while when you light up cigarettes, and so do your teeth. And so does your breath. And then when you're driving along and you drop some hot little ash onto your clothes, then you got to reach around like this, and you're on people looking next to you. What is this guy doing? I mean, it's very difficult to smoke. To not smoke, all you have to do is not put a cigarette in your mouth. That's all you have to do. Now, which is difficult and which is easy? What is true and what isn't true? The fact is that almost all of the things that you think of as difficult are only difficult because you've learned to think in difficult terms. And when you make something difficult, you make a decision then not to do it. Why should you do difficult things when you can do easy things? Like give in to an addiction. And so, as you get yourself to this place where you begin to see that difficulty and struggle are all just lies that you've been saying to yourself. And that if I had to give up drinking 19 years ago, when I hadn't gone 10 years, I had gone at least 10 years and had a few beers every single day. I couldn't think of a day in the previous 10 years that I hadn't had a few beers at night. Not one day could I think of. The idea of just saying to myself, okay, I'm going to go 19 years and never have a drink again. That's just enough to send you off on a binge, isn't it? But you can do easy things, and you can get anywhere from here. You ever hear the line, a journey of 1,000 miles, what, begins with one step? That's right out of the Tao Te Ching. That was Lao Tzu. It's so simple. So when you think about balance in your life, think like this about being in balance. You have a dream. And your dream is to live a life that goes a certain way, that looks a certain way, that feels a certain way. You have a dream that you would like to be able to attract prosperity into your life, that you would like to live a prosperous life. My favorite example, I did it on the PBS show, of the lady sitting next to me from San Francisco who was flying back from Maui after having just done a wedding. And I said to her, "What do you do?" And she said, "I'm a photographer." And I said, "Oh, how's it going?" And she said, "Well," she said, "I'm never going to get rich at it." Now, this is just a thought. Is it true? I don't know if it's true. How can that be? How can you know if that's true, that you're never going to get rich? You don't know. So I said to her, "Well, would you like to get rich?" This was what I always asked when people ask me. Well, she said, "Well, of course." She said, "Who wouldn't want to be rich? Everybody wants to be able to buy the things they want. We all want that." I said, "So let me see if I understand. You would like to get rich. That's your dream. But what you offer up to that dream is that it'll never happen. That's out of balance." That's the kind of balance I'm speaking about. Not the kind of balance that allows you to do these kinds of things. The kind of balance that you begin to realize that there's a misalignment, if you will, between what it is that you are thinking and what it is that you offer up in the way of habits to make those dreams a reality. I call it principles for creating habits to match your desire. Listen to this quote. It's from Ralph Waldo Emerson. He said, want, like what you want, is a growing giant whom the coat of have was never large enough to cover. Want is a growing giant whom the coat of have was never large enough to cover. That is, what you want and what you have are completely and totally out of balance. And Lao Tzu says this to you through me. When you put your attention on what you intend to create and you stay aligned with the way, with the source from which you came, it will show up. It has to. It has to. So that all of the deficiencies, all of the things that you want but are not able to manifest, have not manifested yet into your life, all of it is not because the universe isn't working with you. It will. It's because you are not a vibrational match, an energetic match to what it is that you would like to create. And all today is about is learning to change the way you look at your life and understanding that the life that you're living will change just by your changing your opinion about it. It's so beautifully freeing to not be concerned any longer with whether or not what you would like to have is going to show up. One of the favorite lines that Katie has said to me on many occasions is, to believe that you need what you don't have is a definition of insanity. Because it's just not true. And if the thought is not true, what is it going to do to you? It's going to weaken you. It's that you say anything to yourself that is not true. Anything at all. So it's just this really powerful, wonderful knowing. And I think about this when I write in the mornings. And these words just show up. They just come onto the page. And I say, where do they come from? Who owns this stuff? How does it get here? How can any of this be happening right now? There are some times when I am so connected, and that's why I say 3, 4 o'clock in the morning is your best time. It's your calling. It's your wake-up call from God. Because it's the time when there's so few distractions. In Moby Dick, I remember committing this to memory when I was in high school. Here was Herman Melville, who lived up in western Massachusetts in the 19th century. And he would go out into the cornfields to get a feeling of what it must have been like to be out there on the ocean. And he would lie there on the cornfield. Imagine lying on the ground in the cornfields in the middle of August and seeing nothing but corn silk, as far as you can see. That was Ahab out there looking for his Moby Dick. And he wrote these words: "For as this appalling ocean surrounds the verdant land, so in the soul of man lies one insular Tahiti, full of peace and joy, but encompassed by all of the horrors of the half-lived life." Now, if that doesn't give you goosebumps, I mean, that's like writing doesn't get any better than that. That there is within every single one of you, there is an insular Tahiti, surrounded by all of the fears of living the half-lived life. And all of those fears and all of those worries and all of those anxieties keep you from going to that inner Tahiti, that place. And I want to give you something specific that you can do with this, because when you're lying there in your bed debating whether to get up, or when you're going through all of the troubles and all of the difficulties and all of the things that aren't working, when you're putting your attention on what you don't want and you can't stop it, and your mind is just this jumble of constant thoughts coming in and coming out. Can you identify with that? It goes on. Almost everybody, every patient I've ever worked with has this kind of thing. There is a way. There is a way. Close your eyes and just right across the screen, write the word God. G-O-D. God. The instant that you find yourself putting your attention on what you don't want or what doesn't work or what you don't like, the moment that you do that, God. And then take the G out, move it over to the left. And then take the D out and move it over to the right. And now what you have left is 0. The only number that can't be divided. The only representation of what your return trip is about. You're going back to 0. You're going back to a place of oneness that is indivisible. And then just hone in, just go right into the center of that 0. And then put your thoughts on what it is that you intend to manifest. Just like that. Just like that. In that simple little drill or practical thing that I'm offering you right there, it's what I do. It's how I handle it. I go in there and it's like I'll be thinking of, oh my God, I got to fly over here and I got to get over there, and then I've got to give a talk, and then I've got to catch this plane, and my daughter over here, and then my son is up in school, and I don't know what the hell's going on over here. And it's like this jumble, and I just go, God. No G, no D, 0. Move into the 0. Go into the place that's indivisible. That's your source. That's your return trip. And in that place, in that perfect, beautiful, soft, gentle, impenetrable place, you will no longer put your attention on anything that you don't want. It is so simple, ladies and gentlemen. This idea that is at the core of all of our teachings. I've been out there doing this for over 30 years now. Your Erroneous Zones was published 30 years ago. And what I've discovered is what Earl Nightingale told me when I was just getting started in this whole business. When something called the strangest secret. We become what we think about all day long. We become what we think about all day long. But more than that, understanding that your thoughts are real, that they have an impact. Isn't it conceivable that your thought can have an impact on whether or not you can attract what you want into your life? That you can extend it out into a universe which is perfect, which has no need for you to interfere with it, which is always doing exactly what it is supposed to do. No restrictions on it. And it always has been doing it, and it always will be doing it. And everything that you're going through, it's all part of the perfection of all of this. That you are not any of the things that you've come to believe that you are. You're not what you have, you're not what you do, you're not your reputation. You spend a whole lifetime working on understanding that. I'm looking at the things that we believed in the morning of our life. What we were taught, what we were told when we came into this world, what you were told was important for you to do. It's important for you to go to school. It's important for you to get good grades. We throw this stuff at our children. We throw it at ourselves. It's important for you to look a certain way. It's important for you to make the team. It's important for you to defeat somebody else. It's important for you to make a lot of money, to advance in your profession. It's important for you to be a good daughter, to be a good mother, to take care of your family. It's important for you to have goals. It's important for you to figure out what other people are doing and get there ahead of them so that they don't get ahead of you. It's important for you to win. I'm just scratching at the surface here of all of these things that we've been conditioned and told, this is what you're here for, this is what it's about. And you bought into it. You just hook, line, and sinker. We took it. We all did. I did too. We all did. And then you get to a point, and I just share with you this one observation from Jung called The Stages of Life. He says, thoroughly unprepared, we take the step into the afternoon of life. Worse still, we take this step with the false presupposition that our truths and ideas will serve as hitherto. But we cannot live the afternoon of life according to the program of life's morning. Hear that. Really hear that, because most of you here are in the afternoon of your life, and it has nothing to do with how old you are, by the way. This can happen at 14, or some of you stay in the morning of your life for 16 lifetimes. We cannot live the afternoon of life according to the program of life's morning. For what was great in the morning of your life, getting the grades, making the cheerleading team, being a good daughter, getting the gold star, saving your money, getting the job, whatever it is. What was great in the morning will be little at evening. And what in the morning was true, which is a big word here today, what in the morning was true will at evening have become a lie. Now imagine how many of us are attempting to live the afternoon of our life by lies. They just don't work anymore. I mean, is the most important thing for you to get ahead of somebody else? To look a certain way? To have the right jewelry on? To get the job? Or is it to be on purpose? Is it to be making a difference? Is it to understand what I wrote about in 10 Secrets for Success, the second secret? That you're not going to die with your music still in you. Is it to know God? Is it to feel close to something so profoundly important that in here there's a knowing that I haven't been actualizing it, I haven't been fulfilling it? What am I here for? What am I here for? It's a question that you begin to ask yourself when I speak about purpose. And then you say, well, it's to be like God. That's what God realization is, to return to that from which you originated, the place of your source, the Tao. To be the Tao, to be it, to be the great way. And what is the Tao like? What does it look like? What is it doing? It's not doing anything. It's just constantly giving. It's just constantly offering. It's just constantly providing life. Billions and billions of life forms emanating from this invisible source that has always been, just continuously doing it. Why aren't you doing that? Why aren't you being like God? God is love, it says in the book of John. And he that dwelleth in love dwelleth in me. Your objective is to be like God, to return to your source, to your Father, whatever you want to call it. And then we take things like organized religion and we think, well, because I'm going to church and I'm doing the right thing. But you have to remember that the source, that the Tao, excludes no one. It excludes no one. It doesn't say you get to breathe and you don't. It does say you get to have hair and you don't. It does those things, right? But it doesn't say you get life and you don't. It says it's for all of you, you're all one. And then we take organizations that say only you get to get in. Only if you believe this way do you get to be part of God. But that's not of God. So any thought that you have that excludes anyone is not a thought of God. It's not a thought of Tao. And that's why the number one source of conflicts on our planet today is about organized religions fighting organized religions. And none of it is of God. Anything that divides us weakens us. Anything. Any thought that you have that divides you from somebody else, that makes you better than somebody else, that says this, any judgmental thought at all like that is not a thought of source. And the minute that you leave source, you lose the power to manifest. You lose the power to attract into your life what you want. You have moved away from source. And any thought that unites us, that includes us, that is of service, any thought of spirit and spirituality that brings us together as one and recognizes the truth that all of us have come from the same source and that we are all breathing the same air and that we all came from the same place. So where does any organization that includes one and excludes other fit on the God realization scale? Way down here. You have to really be careful if you want to live the Tao, if you want to live this thing I'm speaking about and get yourself back into balance, if you want to be in balance, then your habits have to start matching up with your desires in everything that you do. And it's just a simple matter of deciding to do it in all of your thoughts. Every place that you have any thought that is not aligned. Any place, any thought. So here are the thoughts that I'd like you to look at that keep you from the truth of Tao. All right? Every thought that you have that is on what's missing in your life. Every thought that you have about what's missing in your life is an energy that allows you to become a vibrational match to attracting more of what's missing in your life. If you are what you think about, then you have to start getting real careful about what you think about. Now you have to start this with being cautious about every conversation that you have with your friends, with your relatives, with your mother, with your husband, with your children, that focuses on what's missing in your life. Because if you want to attract something into your life, something good, something grand, something godlike, something prosperous, something of well-being, health, whatever it might be, if you want to attract that into your life, but you're talking about what's missing and thinking about what's missing, and you understand that what you think about is what expands, you will continue to expand more of what's missing, and you'll continue to attract what's missing in your life. I never talk about what's missing in my life. I only put my attention on what I intend to create. And I have shifted it. And I learned this lesson a long time ago, but the place that it probably expresses it better than any is Esther and Jerry Hicks' book, Ask and It Is Given. The teachings of Abraham is called Learning to Manifest Your Desires. Have more than anything, I think they're the greatest, among the really greatest teachings on the planet today. And I know Esther and Jerry, I know them well, I've been with them on many occasions. It's about practicing this idea of not putting your thoughts on what is missing and shifting it to, it's on its way. It's on its way. It's on its way. 4 words, just get them tattooed someplace inside of you. Whatever it is that you would like to attract into your life, know that it's on its way. And I want to say to you that as you begin to get your thoughts more harmonized with Tao thinking, that is, with the thinking of the source, the thinking of God, that which always has been, that which does nothing but leaves nothing undone, as you begin to more and more harmonize in this way, what happens is that you start elevating your thoughts so that the habit of how you think becomes more harmonized rather than a polarity with what you want to attract. It becomes harmonized with it, and it becomes your natural way of how you think all the time. And you start then beginning to teach your children the same way of thinking. So you just catch them when they start saying things like, oh, with my luck it won't work out. Why have any of us ever learned to say, with my luck, and having it mean things aren't going to work out? Why wouldn't you say, and just have it as your habit, with my luck, it'll probably show up faster than it normally does? Why not have that kind of a way? Because here's what happens. As you begin to shift the way that you think and have an anticipation that this thing is going to work out for you, you can only act upon your thoughts. And as you get these higher and higher thoughts, what happens is that the thought is now more aligned with what it is you want to attract, and then you start acting upon that thought. And as you start acting upon the thought that it will work out, that it's probably on its way, you start to see how this whole system all works. In other words, call it the universe, whatever you want, begins to conspire with you. It begins to act almost where you suddenly become a collaborator with fate. And instead of fate being something that just might or might not happen to you, you're in collaboration with what it is that you want to attract. I mean, ask any physician, there's physicians here today, ask them about something called the will to live. Ask them about somebody who's going in for a corneal transplant and thinks that I'm going to see when this thing is done, rather than someone who thinks it probably won't work out. And which one would they rather work with? What is this thing called the will to live? What is this thing, this inner kind of thing that says, I refuse to allow myself to think? I say to my mother, who's 90 years old, almost 91 years old. I was with her for the last 5 days, every day, all morning long with her. And she's been going through some difficulties and so on. Most of you saw her on the PBS show, if you saw the inspiration. She has always said to me how she was going to die. She said it to me when she was 60. What her death was going to look like. When she was going to die in her sleep, and it was going to be, it was going to be a peaceful thing, and she was going to do it when she was ready. When she was ready, she would leave, and she would know when it was time. And she says, don't think it's time. I said, well, you got a hangnail there. Maybe we should just move on with it. And she said, no, I'll tell you when I'm ready. But she has always said, I will never allow Alzheimer's into my life. She's always said, that is not something, she'll say things like, well, I can't remember this name quite as well as I did before, but that concept of all, it's just not anything that I've ever allowed myself to think is a possibility. And I said to her, well, what if you're wrong? She'll say, well, who'll know the difference? And they've done research on this, in studies on gerontology, where what does your life look like from 60 plus versus what does your life look like below from 60 down to into your 20s? That people who live a dynamic life into their 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s, people who feel strong, who don't feel that getting older means that I have to in any way decline any place, physically or mentally. Getting older has nothing to do with the concept of declining. That when people are in their 20s and 30s and 40s and 50s, and this is their perception of what their life is going to be like when they're in their 60s, that those people have a much greater chance of not attracting the kinds of diseases that are so much age-related as do people who think of old as infirm and declining throughout their 20s, 30s, 40s, and 50s. That you change the way you believe about that and you say declining is not a possibility. I don't think about what's missing. You don't put your attention on what's missing. You don't tell other people about what's missing. And you don't tell other people about what you can't do and what isn't working and how terrible the world is. And the Tao teaches so much of it was written for leaders, people in positions of power. But I've translated all of that into your own level of leadership. And the great leaders are the ones who eschew violence. You have got to get yourself to a place where you don't allow yourself to have violent thoughts come into your consciousness. That means you got to watch the movies you're watching. That means the games that your children are playing, video games, have got to be monitored and removed when they have violence built into them. It means that you don't watch the news and you don't read the stories endlessly reaffirming what a terrible place this world is. It is not a terrible place. It's a perfect place. It's a beautiful place. There are just some leaders who are connected to Tao and others who are not. And we can create the kind of world that we want to create when enough of us begin to say, not part of my consciousness. Nope, I don't buy gossip. No, I don't buy violence. No, I don't have anything to do with that. And you just turn the channel, you turn it off. I pick up a Time magazine when I get on a flight and I go through and I say, I won't read the stories that involve killing. I won't read this. I don't need to hear any more about any more people blowing themselves up. I don't need to continue to have that as a part of my consciousness because I want to be someone who radiates out God-realized thinking. That's what I want to do. And I can't do that if I'm constantly being imbued with that. So I just go through the pages, page. And usually I say, oh, just threw away another $4.95. There's nothing in it to read. Every once in a while, good story about maybe Tiger Woods or something. But by and large, there's not much in there. And you don't have to fill yourself with that kind of energy. So you don't put your thoughts on what's missing. You don't put your thoughts on what always has been. You don't put your thoughts on what others want for you, unless you want more of what others want for you to continue to show up into your life. So that if you're having conflicts with anybody that's out there, you don't have to put your attention on any thought that is out of harmony with the relationship that you would like to have. It doesn't have to be. You can have a love story replace a hate story by just changing your thoughts in any moment of your life. As you'll see, some of you will see it this afternoon, as Katie works with some of you and does the work and teaches you to ask yourself these questions about how can you be sure? How can you be sure that that thought is true? Why not have a love relationship with your ex-husband or your ex-wife? Why not have a love relationship with your in-laws? Why not? Why not have it with everyone on the planet? Why not? Indeed, why not? Every moment of your life, this choice is yours. You can either be a host to God or a hostage to your ego. It's your call. God bless you, and thank you for your attention. Namaste. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Wow. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. My name is Wayne Dyer, and I'm 72 years old, and I have sex almost every day. Almost on Monday, almost on Tuesday, almost. Anyway. That was Jack LaLanne's opening for 20 years until he was 94 years old. So I borrowed it from him. My mother passed away 2 days ago. And I didn't, she was 96 years old and in a coma the last few days of her life. But it's an interesting passage. I thought it would be, I remember my introduction to a different kind of psychology was brought to me by a man named Abraham Maslow back in 1962. And I was fortunate enough to be able to study with Dr. Maslow, and he really introduced me to a different way of looking at how to help people and how to improve the quality of our own lives. It was a turning point for me, and one of the things he spoke about were these people that he calls self-actualizing people, which, if you remember Maslow's pyramid and the hierarchy, and you go from your basic needs to the very top of the pyramid. The very top of the pyramid is something called self-actualization. And he described self-actualizing people. One of the flaws of self-actualizing people is that they get over death almost as if it didn't happen. They have an awareness within them that nothing dies, that everything that materializes, of course, changes form. But there is something. My teacher in India, his name was Swami Muktananda. Many of you have read, and he was asked the question, "What is real, Master? What is real?" And Muktananda said, "That is real, which never changes. Everything else is illusion." So I've been looking at, I've been thinking about Muktananda and thinking about Dr. Maslow, who passed away on the 7th of June, 1970. And that was the same day that I was walking across the stage in Detroit at Cobo Hall, receiving my PhD in almost the same hour. It was as if he had said to me, "I've explained this whole idea of self-actualization to the academic world. Now you explain it to the cab drivers and the school teachers and the nurses and the yoga students and everyone else. This whole idea that there is a higher place where each of us can reach right here while we're here." And I've been thinking about all of this since my mom left. And there's pictures of my mom all over my apartment on Maui. I have pictures of her on the wall when she was 10 years old. in 1926. And another picture of her reading a poem that she wrote when she was 12 years old in 1928 about the election that year. Any of you remember the election that year? 1928. Smith or Hoover, who will it be? Both are running for the presidency. Smith is the thin one, Hoover's the fat. My, such an uproar. Where are we at? That was my mom at 12. And I have pictures of my mother at 30, and I have a picture of her sitting on my lap on her 75th birthday. And I look at that pictures and I say, which one of them is my mother? Was she that 10-year-old? According to Muktananda, that is real, which never changes, and all of us are here in bodies that we believe is who we are. We're totally convinced of it. I was in a 21-year-old body, and I can't find any part of it anywhere on the planet. But while I was in it, I was absolutely convinced that this is who I am. And then I moved into another body, and another body, and another body. And the same is true for each and every one of us here, that there is some part of us that is infinite, that is the soul, that is the spirit. It makes no difference what you call it. Many of you know that I wrote a book about 7 years ago after living the Tao Te Ching for a full year. It's called Change Your Thoughts, Change Your Life. And I took each of the 81 verses of the Tao Te Ching, and I took a full year. I began on January the 1st, 2005, and I read verse 1. And I would take 4.5 days, 4 days to contemplate it, think about it, meditate on it, try to understand it. And then in the half day that I had, I would look at a painting of Lao Tzu from 2,500 years ago. And someone had channeled this painting and sent it to me from my radio show. And I don't do any writing now without him looking at it. And I just sort of gaze at this drawing that this person imagined Lao Tzu to be. And it speaks to me. And I would write an essay. The Tao Te Ching, some call it the wisest book ever written. Someone once sent me a copy of a book called Jesus and Lao Tzu. And on the left-hand side of the page were all the sayings of Lao Tzu. And on the right-hand side of the page were all the sayings of Jesus that mirrored what Lao Tzu had said 500 years before his birth. Now, I'm not saying Jesus was plagiarizing, but I am saying there are eternal truths. And these eternal truths come to me directly out of the Tao. And I did this for each of the 81 verses of the Tao. And the opening line of the Tao Te Ching says, the Tao that can be named is not the Tao. As soon as you try to define this invisibleness that is within each and every one of us, that keeps occupying these new bodies all the time, while the body continues to change, who we are is infinite. So I wrote a few words out about what I think of as the soul. Let me just share them with you. The ideal of the soul, this part of you that is never changing, this part of you that is infinite. And that word infinite is a very important word to think about because it's the opposite of finite. Finite means something begins and ends. If it didn't end any place or didn't begin any place, we wouldn't be able to call it finite. We would say it is always continuing. The minute that it stops, the minute we have a form to it, the minute we place anything on it that is associated with this physical, corporeal world that we all live in, it moves from the infinite to the finite. So to try to define that which is infinite with a brain or a mind that is finite is an impossibility. Lao Tzu knew this and understood this. It's why meditation is such an important part of the process of coming to our highest self, coming to know who we are. It's the place where there are no beginnings. Herman Melville once said that God's one and only voice is silence. Is silence. It's the one place where there's nothing finite there. And Blaise Pascal, the famous French philosopher and scientist, once said that all of man's troubles stem from his inability to sit quietly in a room alone. And most of us just aren't comfortable with this because we have come to believe and trust in the evidence for who we are is on the basis of that which we can touch and see and feel and smell, what our five senses tell us. But our five senses lie to us. William Blake pointed that out beautifully in one of his poems back in 1777. He said, to see the world in a grain of sand, and a heaven in a wildflower, to hold eternity in the palm of your hand, and infinity in an hour, we are all led to believe a lie. When we see with, not through the eye, which was born in a night, to perish in a night, while the soul slept in beams of light. We are all infinite beings in a temporary human experience. I've said it over and over again. Whenever people ask me what's my very favorite quote, my very favorite observation, it came from Pierre Teilhard, the French priest who was excommunicated from the Catholic Church for his outrageous ideas. He said that we're not here as human beings having a spiritual experience. It's the other way around. We are all infinite spiritual beings having a temporary human experience. And coming to a place where we live our lives from that infinite place and beginning to know our soul, it's one of the reasons why I accepted an invitation to come here. I do yoga myself 5-6 times a week. I know the significance of it for me in my own body and my own health, my own life, my own emotional state. I know that when I meditate, I'm better. I know that when I do yoga, I'm healed. And so I came. So getting to know the soul, the spirit, and not identifying ourselves on the basis of our physical senses. It's the essence of my newest book, which is a PBS special called Wishes Fulfilled. It's the whole message behind all of it, is to really come up with a specific way to come in contact with this infinite part of ourselves. Now remember, if it's infinite, it doesn't stop any place. It doesn't start any place. That's by definition infinite. So if something doesn't start and doesn't stop, what is it doing? It has to be expanding, doesn't it? The minute it stops expanding, it's finite. We're no longer talking about the soul. We're talking about what Blake said, we see with, not through our eyes. So here's what I jotted down. The ideal of the soul, the thing that it asks for, is neither knowledge, nor light, nor happiness. The ideal of the soul is space, immensity. The one thing it needs more than anything else is to be free to expand and to reach out and to embrace the infinite. Yeah, the ideal of the soul is infinity, because that's what the soul is. It is miserable when it is circumscribed or restricted in any way. Now, I have 8 children, 6 beautiful daughters and 2 sons. And one of the things that I know, I used to say that before I had children, I had 8 theories about how to raise children. And now I have 8 children and no theories. All right? But one of the things I know about children is that no one likes being told what to do. And this isn't just children, this is all of us. One of my favorite songs is a song from when I was back in high school. Oh, give me land, lots of land, and the starry skies above. Boy, you know it. Don't fence me in. Don't restrict me. Don't put boundaries on me. Don't tell me what I can do and what I can't do. Don't tell me how to be there. Don't tell me what to wear, what to think. Don't tell me how to do yoga. Don't tell me, I don't want to be told. This is the soul speaking, always. The soul is constantly having a desire to expand and grow. And anything or anyone that comes into your life that attempts to do that, you will find yourself fighting it and reaching back. Particularly will you find this in your yoga practice. Yoga, the word yoga means what? Union. Union with what? Your highest self. Union with God. This is what the highest self is. It's the part of you, the place within you that is not worshiping God. That's what religion has brought to us and taught us, that God is outside of us. It's the part and the place within you that knows that at your highest level, you are God. Each and every one of us. And when you are connected to the highest place within yourself, when you are connected to the God that you are, you have all the powers of the creative source of the universe. You become the Tao. The Tao becomes you. So, yoga, or union, is really a way of becoming a manifester. Now, in order to become a manifester, someone who was able to attract and place into their lives what they place their attention on, there are certain, we saw a lot about something called The Secret not too long ago on all the newspapers and magazines and on the news and always. And I was asked to be a part of that and stayed away from it for different reasons. Because for me, manifesting is not about attracting what you want. Manifesting is an awareness and an understanding that you attract what you are. I have been studying in depth something called the I Am discourses. And I'll share just a little bit about it here. But one of my very favorite quotes, this is from Unveiled Mysteries, says, The attitude of one person who wishes to work in conscious cooperation with the ascended host, with God, should not be, I wish I could go to them for instruction and pray to God or the source, that from which we all originated. T.S. Eliot said, we shall not cease from exploration. But at the end of all of our exploring will be to return to the place from which we originated and to know it for the first time. Now, the poet was speaking about dying, leaving the body. I'm not. I think we can come to know that place from which we originated and live from it. And then the words that Jesus spoke to us in the book of John, that even the least among you can do all that I have done and even greater things. It was Jesus who said, when he was about to be stoned for blasphemy, and he said, why would you stone me? And they said, you blaspheme. You claim to be God. You are a man. And he said, is it not written in your laws that I have said, you are gods, all of you? The infinite place within you that needs to expand and wants to grow, that which we call your life. I mean, when my mother died, she was down to about 85 pounds. But if they were to weigh her the second before she died, and then weigh her the second after, her body weighed exactly the same. And yet, she was no longer alive. So her life, that what we call her life, is weightless. It's formless. It has no beginning, it has no end. You can't weigh it. How can you weigh that which has no form? So your life, the thing that we call your life, is God. That's what you are. That's what every single one of us are. So here's what Saint Germain said. The attitude of one who wishes to work in conscious cooperation with the ascended host should not be, I wish I could go to them for instruction, but rather, I will so purify, discipline, and perfect myself and become such an expression of divine love and wisdom and power, then I can assist in their work. Then I will automatically be drawn to them. If you want to attract into your life what it is that you feel is missing, then what you have to do is to become like these great ascended masters. I honestly feel that I spent the first 10 years of my life in a series of foster homes and orphanages. My father walked out on his family and left my mother with 3 boys under the age of 4 when she was 23 years old. And so I had a great blessing in those earliest years of my life to be able to go within and discover something that I came here to teach, which is self-reliance. To learn how to rely upon ourselves. And I honestly feel that I'm right now writing on a book. It was very hard for me to leave Maui and get on that plane and fly to Sacramento and take a car up here and all of that. Not because I don't think it's beautiful here, but I'm where I belong anyway, so I stopped fighting all of that stuff anyway. But it was because I'm in the midst of writing. And I'm writing a book called I Can See Clearly Now. And it's sort of like a memoir, except that it's a look at all of the what seemed like just isolated events that showed up in my life, which led me to the next step, which led me to the next, which have arrived here in 2012 at the age of 72. And as I write this, and I've written almost 50,000 words in the last 6 weeks, it's almost like an obsession, because it isn't me writing. It is me as writing. It is something that is
Lao Tzu said, none of you are doing anything. He said, you're all just being done. You ever have a sense of that when you look in the mirror? And you look at your body and you say, what the hell is going on here? I say, what's this chicken neck stuff? Where the hell did that come from? What am I doing with hair growing out of my ears? And that doesn't need it. I could use it up here, but it's... And you have a sense that in this physical world, that there's nothing for you to do. Just keep this thing that houses your soul in as healthy a space as you can, but basically it's doing what it's doing. And you, inside of there, the infinite you, is just an observer to the whole process. And isn't that one of the things that we learn in our very first yoga days? It's just, don't be so attached to your body and what it can do and how it hurts to try to do that. And can I balance myself here? And can I do a downward up or down or whatever the hell they call all of those things that are out there? I just do Bikram, so it's... So there's a sense of this awareness. So because of the time, I usually take 3 or 4 hours or sometimes 3 or 4 days to go through this, and I'm trying to do this in a brief amount of time. The reason that most of us cannot reach this exalted state that I want to present to you in the limited time that we have is because we have come to believe in our limitations. We've come to believe in our ordinariness. We've come to believe that who we are is not God, is not divine. All right? So in order to transcend that mentality, you have to sort of reprogram your subconscious mind. Your subconscious mind is the mind that is doing virtually everything that you do. It's the mind that got you here into this room, that put your mat down, that got you dressed this morning, that get your breakfast. When you get in the car, you don't think about, how do I start this thing, and how do I got to make a right turn here, do I slow down, do I not? You all programmed your conscious mind, programmed your subconscious mind to do all of these things on automatic. And according to my friend Bruce Lipton, about 96 or 97% of what we do all day long, every day of our lives, 24/7, is done by our subconscious mind. So we have been programmed to believe in our ordinariness. I don't know if you saw my most recent PBS special, but I opened it up with a little story from Portia Nelson, so I'll just share it here with you if you haven't seen it. If you have PBS, you probably have, because that's about all they play. And I'm very proud of that, and we've raised close to $250 million for public television. So, since 1999, it's been amazing. So this was something that Portia Nelson, who I knew, who passed away a few years back, 10 years back now. She lived up in Seattle. And she was at a seminar, and they were asked to write the autobiography of their life in five verses, 5 chapters. So, and they gave them only like cards this size. Actually, they were smaller than this. They were 3 by 5 cards. So write out chapter 1 of your life and just go to where you are today. And I remember doing this very same thing, but what she wrote was so brilliant that I asked her daughter if we could put it on public television, which I did on the most recent show, and we made a contribution to Portia's work. So this is what she wrote down in the chapter 5 of her life. Chapter 1, she said, I walk down the street. There's a deep hole in the sidewalk. I fall in. I'm lost. I'm helpless. It isn't my fault, and it takes forever to find a way out. Chapter 2 of my life. I walk down the same street. There's a deep hole in the sidewalk. I pretend I don't see it. I fall in again. I can't believe I'm in the same place. It isn't my fault. It still takes a long time for me to get out. Chapter 3 of my life. I walk down the same street. There's a deep hole in the sidewalk. I see it there. I still fall in. It's a habit. But my eyes are open. I know where I am, and it is my own fault. And I get out immediately. Chapter 4 of my life. I walk down the same street. There's a deep hole in the sidewalk. I walk around it. Chapter 5 of my life. Finally, I walk down another street. Isn't that great? So in the time I have left, I want to talk to you about walking down another street. And this other street is a street in which you have an awareness that not only do you have a physical body, but you have come to believe that this physical body is who you are, and that you have locked yourself into these 5 senses and decided that whatever evidence they provide for you is how you identify and define your reality. By what I see, by what I hear, by what I smell, by what my life looks like, by how much money I have, by the stuff that I possess. And this is the world of the ego, and this is the world of the false self, according to my teacher, Nisargadatta Maharaj in India, who passed away in 1986. The false self is the ego. The ego is the part of us that has come to believe that who I am is defined by these 6 things. Who I am is what I have. And so we spend a big hunk of our life attempting to get as much stuff as we possibly can. The Tao teaches something very different. Let go of everything you have. When I moved to Maui in 2005 full-time, I gave up everything that I owned. Everything. 20,000 books, all of my photographs, records of every description, furniture, all the things in the house, all my clothing, shoes. It was all donated to people who lived underneath a bypass in Florida. And let go of all of it. So the ego teaches us you are what you have. The Tao teaches us let go of everything that you have. Do less and accomplish more. One of Lao Tzu's most famous observations was, I do nothing and leave nothing undone. My son has taken to becoming a spiritual Taoist. Every time I tell him to do something, he says, I do nothing. And I leave nothing undone. But there's much wisdom in that. I could go on into that. The second thing that the ego teaches us is that who I am is not only what I have, but who I am is what I do, what I accomplish. And so we spend a big hunk of our lives believing that the way that we become, quote, successful, happy, fulfilled, self-actualized, whatever it might be, is on the basis of what I accomplish, what my resume looks like, how many promotions I get. And so we send our children off to school and we ask them to learn to identify themselves on how much they get and what they accomplish. Your grades become more important than what it is that you are studying. What you own, what clothes you wear, what labels you have, and so on. And we become obsessed with this kind of absurdity. And this is the false self at work. The third thing that the ego teaches us is that I am what other people think of me. I am my reputation. So becoming obsessed with our reviews, what people think of us, other people's opinions, getting the approval of others. We talk about peer group approval needs and so on. I have 8 children that aren't concerned about those things. They were never raised with that kind of a mentality. The whole idea of, trying to please other people was something that they consistently heard from their mother and myself, that this isn't important to us. We're not attached to that. and this kind of an attachment. So the Tao teaches us that what you think of me is none of my business. What the ego teaches us is that what you think of me is the most important thing that I have, and so I'll do whatever it is that I need to do in order to get you to agree with me, to like me, to approve of me, and so on. The fourth thing that the ego teaches us, this false self, is that who I am is separate from everyone else. And so we are raised in this world of the false self, which teaches us that we have to be in competition with everyone else. We have to defeat someone else. Being number one is the most important thing, and you see people doing this all the time at football games and and you'll see it when the Olympics come up, that the gold medal is more important than anything else, and you'll see people weeping and sobbing over this idea that I have to be better than somebody else in order to be fulfilled in my life. The fifth thing that the ego teaches us is that I am separate not only from everybody else, but that I am separate from what's missing in my life. The Tao teaches us that there is no place that God is not. If there is no place that God is not, then God must be in you. And if there is no place that God is not, then God must also be in all that I perceive to be missing from my life. And therefore, in order to become a manifester and to attract into my life what I want, I simply have to realign myself. I have to rejoin. I have to yoga myself to God. And the most egregious error of the ego is a belief system that says that who I am is separate from God, that God is something outside of me. We have not been raised to understand and believe that at our basic core, what Lao Tzu called our original nature, what we are is love. And all we have to do is be that and live that. There was a great Indian poet. His name was Rabindranath Tagore. And he received the Nobel Prize for Literature in 1913 for a collection of poetry called the Gitanjali. And in that poem, that long poem, 90-some verses, one of those verses says this. He's speaking of the ego. He said, I went out alone on my way to my tryst. But who is this me in the dark? I step aside to avoid his presence, but I escape him not. He makes the dust rise from the earth with his swagger. He adds his loud voice to every word I utter. He is my own little self, my Lord. He knows no shame, but I am ashamed to come to thy door in his company. That's a great poet. And that's a great piece of truth. That in order to get to this place, I speak about, that Maslow spoke to me about and trained me to think about, called self-actualization, is that we have to stop evaluating who we are on the basis of those ego identifiers, and instead begin to see ourselves as divine love, as pieces of God. The Native Americans used to say that no tree has branches so foolish as to fight among themselves. And look at us. Look at what happened just down the road from here in Colorado a few days ago. What is it about us that we have to create instruments of death in order to feel good about ourselves? What is it about us that we have to destroy each other and be in competition with each other, and even create things called weapons. It's why Lao Tzu left the place where he left in ancient China at the time of the Warring States. And a big part of the Tao, something like 31 verses out of the 81 verses, speak to the absurdity of having weapons and killing each other. He said that every death in battle should not be celebrated, but should be mourned, because it gives evidence that we have not reached this place and understand what T.S. Eliot was speaking, this place from which we originated, this place to which we shall return. From A Course in Miracles, I jotted this down the other day. The memory of God comes to the quiet mind. It cannot come where there is conflict. A mind at war with itself remembers not eternal gentleness. What you remember is a part of you, for you must be as God created you. Let all this madness be undone for you, and return in peace to the remembrance of God, still shining in your quiet mind. Coming to know God, it's not about discovering something that resides outside of you. It's about remembering what's inside of you and living from that place. I don't believe that God is interested in us loving God. I believe God is interested in us loving each other and figuring out a way to do this regardless. And it's why I pray so hard for the idea that we will have people, especially in this election year, who will stand up and have the balls to say, it's time to stop making these weapons of mass destruction. And they are weapons of mass destruction. The idea that somehow in our Second Amendment we are entitled to have weapons that kill 100 people a minute. How far is that going to go? Now they're talking in Syria about using chemical weapons on their own people. Does the Second Amendment provide for us, to all of us, if we want to use chemical weapons to protect ourselves? I mean, how far does this absurdity go? Anyway, that's my rant. I'll get off of that. The way to this higher place within ourselves is understanding two very important words. These words are the basis for a children's book that I've just done called I Am, Why Two Little Words Mean So Much. Any moms right here in the front? You a mom? Here, would you like to have this for your baby? You're welcome. God bless you. Namaste. So, let me just take you back for a few moments here. Back before Lao Tzu. Now, Lao Tzu was here on this planet at the time of the Warring States in China in 500 BC, approximately the same time that the Bhagavad Gita was also being created in India, the Song of the Lord. 800 years, 8 centuries before that, 1,300 years before the birth of Christ, comes one of the most ancient, if not the most ancient spiritual texts extant on the planet today. It's called the Torah, the first 5 books of the Old Testament. In the second book of the Torah, Exodus, Moses is, well, you know the story of Moses, but if you don't, let me refresh you. At the time of Moses' birth, the Pharaoh, who had held so many of the Israelites captive and enslaved, had ordered that all male babies to be born from Israelite mothers, because he had heard that there was someone coming that could be a danger to his power. He ordered that all male babies be executed. Well, Moses' mother gave birth, and she just couldn't stand the idea of this baby being killed by the soldiers. So she wrapped him up in a blanket and put him in a basket, must have been waterproof, and floated him down the Nile. Moses, this little baby, was discovered by a woman who captured him, picked him up, and fell so in love with him that she decided to raise him as her own. It turns out that this was the daughter of the Pharaoh. So Moses' grandfather is the Pharaoh who has ordered him to be killed, but he doesn't know this. At about the age of 18, Moses gets into a fight, and with one of the people, one of the soldiers who is trying to actually punish and kill one of the Israelites. And so Moses fights him and kills him and has to run away because he knows what his punishment will be. He runs away to the Sinai, and for the next 40 years, he is a shepherd. He marries a woman named Zipporah. They have all of these children. He's a shepherd. He's out wandering about, according to this ancient text. One day, he comes across a bush, a burning bush. But the bush is not being consumed. It is just continuing to burn. And he looks at this, and suddenly the bush begins to speak. And as legend tells us, this is God speaking to Moses and saying to Moses, I have some instructions for you. I'll give it to you the way it is written. I just love this. So God calls out to Moses from this bush and says, Moses, Moses. And Moses responds with the words, here I am. These are the first words he speaks to God. Do not come closer, he said. Take your sandals off your feet, for the place where you are standing is holy ground. Then he continues, I am the God of your father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, the God of Jacob. Moses hid his face because he was afraid to look at God. So God gives him this instruction. You are to go and free the people of Israel. So Moses says to God, who am I that I should go to Pharaoh and that I should bring the Israelites out of Egypt? He answered, I will certainly be with you, and this will be the sign to you that I have sent you. When you bring the people out of Egypt, you will all worship God at this mountain. Then Moses asked God, if I go to the Israelites and say to them, the God of your fathers has sent me to you, and they ask me, what is his name? What shall I tell them? Now, the only place in all the spiritual texts where God gives his name is right here in this passage. Same name that you have. God replies to Moses, I am that I am. This is what you are to say to the Israelites. I am has sent me to you. God also said to Moses, say this to the Israelites, Yahweh, the God of your fathers, the God of Abraham, and this is my name forever. This is how I am to be remembered in every generation to come, which is our generation. All right? So, the name of God is I am. That I am. Now, every time you use the name I am, you are using the name of God. How do you use this name? Do you say, I am sick? Many of you know that I have been diagnosed with leukemia. And I generally start out my talks by saying, I am well. I am perfect health. I am that. I am. That is my affirmation. That is how I live. That is how I breathe. That is how I believe. Now, in the book of Joel, there's a line that says, "Let the weak man say, I am strong." Now, one of the things that I want to leave you with here in the time that I have with you today is for you to become conscious of how you use this term, I am. I have a CD, along with my friend James Twyman, that is, what they did with this is, it comes from the Moses Code, which is a book I encourage you to look at, by James Twyman. And what they did is they took the sound in Hebrew of the letters that mean I am that I am. Supposedly this is what God said to Moses. And they have associated the sound with what those letters meant back 1,300 years before the birth of Christ, or 3,300 years ago, and come up with the sound. The sound is a meditation that I do every day. And what I recommend that you do, you want this, don't you? Oh, you have it? Oh, you have it, great. All right, you got it. So what I encourage you to do in terms of manifesting, before I get into the principles, is to take out a piece of paper sometime when you're at home, and it sounds like a silly thing to do, but I want you to do it. I want you to write at the top of that page the word that, T-H-A-T, that, okay? And under that heading, whatever it is that you would like to attract or manifest into your life, I would like you to just write that down, all right? So if it's a job that you want, if it's a relationship that you want, if it's a healing that you want, if it's abundance that you want to attract into your life, whatever it is, just place it underneath that. And come to a place in your life where it is spoken about in the book of Romans, in the New Testament. He calls those things which do not exist as though they did. You must be able to get to this place in your life where you don't use the evidence of your senses, what your eyes tell you, what your ears tell you, what your stomach tells you, what you see written down, what the internet tells you. You want to be able to be in a place where you are living from the end as if what you would like to manifest is already there. To make a future dream, a present fact, you must assume the feeling of that wish as already being fulfilled. And the sounds that you will hear on track 2 and 3 of this meditation are the exact sounds of what those words were spoken back there 3,300 years ago. All I can say to you is that so many incredible miracles have manifested into my life since I began practicing this meditation. Who did I promise this to? Somebody? Yeah, there. Okay, stand up. Come on up. This is a gift to you. There you are. Enjoy it. God bless you. Yeah. So, this arrived in my home about a year before I started writing Wishes Fulfilled. And it's called the I Am Discourses. The I Am Discourses are, I think, one of the great spiritual texts on the planet today. You can pick it up, especially Volume 3. It's published by the Saint Germain Press. Saint Germain is, I believe, because I'm a student of Yogananda, and Sri Yukteswar, his teacher, who was born on the same day I was in only 1855 instead of 1940, like me. And they speak about this saint that is capable, who always keeps a young body. His name is Babaji. How many have heard the name Babaji? Yeah, this is an audience. I don't have to ask that. Saint Germain is Babaji, in my opinion. This is someone who shows up in a young body. And when you read Ascended Masters Training, The Unveiled Mysteries, The Magic Presence, and the I Am discourses, which I have read all of them and studied them before I actually channeled Wishes Fulfilled. But let me just share with you just something here at the very beginning of it. This I can do without glasses. Life, in all its activities, everywhere manifest, is God in action. Remember what I said earlier, the life in your body is weightless, and it is God. It is what you originated from, it is what you will return to. It is where my mom is right now. And it is only through lack of the understanding of applied thought and feeling that mankind is constantly interrupting the pure flow of that perfect essence of life, which would, without interference, naturally express its perfection everywhere. Saint Germain has come to me. I feel as if I have spoken to him. And one of the things that I know from Saint Germain, from Babaji, is that it's only 1 in a million people who spend any amount of their time giving thanks to the I Am presence that is your very essence, your being. Not giving thanks for all of the bounty that you have in your life and for your health and for all of the nice things, but to be in a state of gratitude for the awareness that who you are is this divine essence, this divine being. And when I do the meditation, one of the things that I say is I am in a state of continuous gratitude for the I Am presence that speaks through my mouth and through my body and through my writing and so on. It's staying in constant contact with the awareness that there is something divine that is what I am. And every time I use this word, I am. The natural tendency of life is love, peace, beauty, harmony, and opulence. This, by the way, is what Lao Tzu said as well. For life cares not who uses it, but is constantly surging to pour more of its perfection into manifestation, always with that lifting process which is ever inherent within itself. I am is the activity of that life. How strange it is that students with sincere interest do not seem to get the true meaning of those two words. When you say and feel, I am, you release the spring of eternal, everlasting life to flow on its way unmolested. In other words, you open wide the door of its natural flow. When you say, I am not, you shut the door in the face of this mighty energy. I often tell my audiences, God didn't say when Moses asked, what is your name and who shall I say sent me? He didn't say, my name is I hope things work out for you. He said, my name is I am that I am. That meaning, when he says I am that, that was Nisargadatta's great autobiography or biography, and a book that I have studied for 30 years now. And he was known as the I Am Guru in India. And these two words, I am, have so much power within them. I am is the full activity of God. Having placed before you so often the truth of God in action, I wish you to understand its first expression in individualization, in you. All right? The first expression of every individual everywhere in the universe, either spoken word, silent thought, or feeling, is I am, recognizing its own conquering divinity. The student, endeavoring to understand and apply these mighty yet simple laws, must stand guard more strictly over his thoughts and expression in word or otherwise. For every time you say, I am not, I cannot, I have not, you are, whether knowingly or unknowingly, throttling that great presence within you. So, could God say, I am depressed? Could God say, I am sad? Could God say, I am unhappy? I am miserable? Not possible. And every time you say that, you blaspheme. Because when you use the words I am, you are in union, you are in yoga with God. So when I do my yoga practice, and there's certain of these postures and asanas that I have a little more difficulty with others, especially balancing ones and so on. Before I start the asana, my inner meditation is, I am well balanced. I am perfect balance. I can do this. I am perfect balance. And as I do this, I begin to see that I am speaking to this body. And what is this body? It is nothing more than something temporary that is always changing, so it's not even real. Now, there's a book that I brought here with me. And if you don't buy anything here, and I don't care if you do, I didn't even bring them. Somebody else brought them. So, but there's a book here that I would really love you to read. And if you haven't read it, I was blessed to be able to give this to my mom to read about 6 months before she passed on. And it just brought a sense of peace to her. The book is called Dying to Be Me: My Journey from Cancer to Near Death to True Healing, by Anita Moorjani. I wrote the foreword to this book. Mira, this love of mine right here with the glasses on, who just did a past life regression, with me, that's in Wishes Fulfilled, which completely turned my life around in so many ways, brought something off the internet to me about this woman. She was wheeled into a hospital in 2005. Her weight was down to about 82 pounds. She had lymphoma throughout her entire body. She had tumors the size of lemons, over 24 of them, throughout her entire body. She was in a coma. She had tubes coming out of her and wires and so on. And her husband was there, and her mother was there, and they were there to just say her last rites. This was to be her last night on earth, after 5 years of the steady growth of lymphoma. While in this coma, she had what is called an NDE, a near-death experience. And in this near-death experience, she came into contact first with her father, who had passed away 10 years before, and then she had an opportunity to have a vision about what her life could be. And she saw her medical records there, which indicated that she was to die tonight. And she also saw them change right before her eyes, where she had no cancer. No one in the history of the world, as far as we know, has ever been at this end stage of cancer and ever survived. That's how far she was gone. If you saw the pictures of her that I have seen when she was in that state, you wouldn't think that anyone could possibly survive that. She was told that she could go back into her body and she would be healed, and she was to teach the lessons that she taught here, or she could go on. And she did not want to get back into her body. It was just a wasted mass of flesh and bones. But for some reason, she went back in, at her father's persuasion. 5 days after coming out, she opened her eyes, and everyone was in shock. 5 days after that, they were trying to find, 5 days after she came out of the coma, 60% of her cancer had gone into remission. 4 weeks after she came out, she was totally out of the hospital completely. Today she lectures. She was on my public television special. Many of you may have seen it. And she's an angel on this earth. And what she learned in this near-death experience was that all we have to do is treasure our own magnificence and recognize that God is not something out there that is within us. There's nothing for us to do. There's no job for you to do. You don't have to win. You don't have to be anybody. Who in this room has cancer? Somebody does. Where? Anyone? Where are you? Come on up. I'd like to give this to you. Have you read this? Well, I'd like to give this to you as a gift. What is your name? Kelly, this is going to change your life. I'd like you to say the words, I am well.
I am well.
I am perfect health.
I am perfect health.
God bless you. Namaste. They have them in the back. It's a must read, especially if you have anybody who is in the position that my mom has been in for the last year or two, and or even has any kind of illness at all. Or as when I talked to Reed about publishing this book, I said, the potential audience for this is anyone who is ever going to die or knows anybody that is. And it's one of the most freeing, peaceful experiences to know that you're not here to accomplish anything. You're not here to be better than anybody else. You're not here to win. All you have to do is just love yourself. I mean, truly love how magnificent you are. And that's what I meant when Saint Germain spoke to me and said, it's all you have to do is spend 15 minutes being in a state of appreciation for the I am presence that you are. Now, one of the things that the I am discourse has taught that I was having trouble with this whole idea of manifesting is written on page 318. And I'd like to give this to you as we get ready to close. The student should constantly look within his human self and see what habits or creations are there that need to be plucked out and disposed of. For only by refusing to any longer allow habits of judging, condemning, and criticizing to exist can he be free. Are you hearing this? The true activity of the student is only to perfect his own world, and he cannot do it as long as he sees imperfection in the world of any of God's children. That includes the person who opened fire in Aurora. That includes Osama bin Laden. That includes Adolf Hitler. Any judgments that we have of judgment, criticism, and condemnation. And I wanted to manifest something so bad for such a long period of time, but the person that was involved in it, I kept having this sense of judgment toward this person. And it wasn't until I was able to say, I accept you for what you are. It's what led me to my father's grave in 1974. And I stood there after being sent there by a series of just absolutely impossible coincidences. I stood there on his grave after being filled with rage and hatred and anger and bitterness towards this man who would walk out on my mother and her 3 young boys. I was the youngest. And I finally found out about his death, that he had been dead 10 years, but I went to his grave in 1974 on August the 30th. And as I walked away from his grave, because I really went there to piss on his grave, I was so just filled with rage in him. And as I walked back to the rent-a-car, something called me back, and I went and stood there looking at this plate on the ground that said Melvin Lyle Dyer, 1914 to 1964. And something came over me. In fact, we've made a film about it, another film called My Greatest Teacher. And I was able to say to my father, from this moment on, I send you love. Who am I to judge you and condemn you? You did what you knew how to do, given the conditions of your life. And I accept you for it. Mark Twain once said that forgiveness is the fragrance that the violet sheds on the heel that has crushed it. On the heel that has crushed it. Enjoy it. My greatest teacher. Who was my greatest teacher? After that, my entire life changed. I stopped drinking. I started exercising. My writing shifted. I went back to New York. I was professor at St. John's University in New York City. I took 2 weeks to go down to Fort Lauderdale, Florida, checked into the Spindrift Motel, and wrote a book called Your Erroneous Zones in 14 days. 14 days. Today, there's close to 100 million copies in 47 languages around the world. And everything in my life after that shifted. My diet changed, my habits changed, everything turned around because I got the rage out of me. Because in order to attract the elements that are going to bring you the ability to manifest into your life what you want, remember how I opened this program. We do not manifest what we want. That comes from a place of missing. We manifest what we are. The angels who will guide you throughout your life will only be there for you when they recognize themselves in you. And they cannot recognize themselves in you and guide you when you are filled with hatred, anger, judgment, condemnation, bitterness, fear, anxiety, stress. You have to let all of that go and be love. Be in this place of perfect divine love. Love for everything and everyone on our planet. That's self-actualization at work. And the principles for bringing this about into your life are the last 5 chapters of Wishes Fulfilled. But basically, what it says is, the greatest gift that you've ever been given is the gift of your imagination. Your imagination is yours to be able to do anything you want with. You can place any thought in there with the awareness of I am. There's a very famous poem about that moment of Moses speaking to God. It says, earth's crammed with heaven, and every burning bush afire with God. And those who truly know take off their sandals, while the rest sit round it and pick blackberries. It's your call. It's your call. So your imagination is the greatest gift that you've been given. And you can put anything in there. No one can tell you what can be there or what can't be there. Einstein said imagination is greater than knowledge. And he said if you want your children to have a great imagination, read them fairy tales. If you want them to be even smarter, read them more fairy tales. That's why I've written 5 children's books with that very idea in mind. The second thing is that you have to learn to live from the end. Whatever you have placed into your imagination, you have to act as if it already were your reality, independent of what anything or anyone else says. When I was told that I had this diagnosis of leukemia, I can't tell you how many people sent me condolence letters and sent me information about this disease and how it was incurable and unfortunately this. And fortunately, I was given by my children a wonderful gift. It's called an iPad. And it's got this wonderful feature in it. It's called Delete. And then there's another feature of it. It's called Trash, which is really great. I'd like to have a button like that on me at any time, so that anytime anybody brings any information to you, you just push the trash button. It even makes a little sound. It goes, whoop, hit delete, and it's gone. I had this little scar that you see right here on the right side of my face. There was a skin cancer thing there, and I was going to the dermatologist, and they were going to cut this thing out. And I had a woman stop me, and she said, that's really bad. I said, what? It's just a little red mark here, and they're going to just cut it out, and it'll be fine. She said, no. She said, my girlfriend's husband, he had that. They had to cut his penis off. I said, just got a little red mark on my chin, and that couldn't possibly... Trash, right? You want to be very careful, because there's always people out there who are willing to send you messages about how terrible something is going to be. The third of these principles is the principle of, I call it, assuming the feeling of the wish fulfilled. You must be able to feel it, because every time that you feel something within your body, you give a instruction to your subconscious mind. And your subconscious mind is the part of you where you do all of your living. You want to redo your subconscious mind. Now, I jotted down for the last principle. I have 5 minutes left. And it's this is from the book of Job. Now, tonight, I'm going to give you guys such a gift. Tonight, and every night for the rest of your life, I want you to take the last 5 minutes before you go off to sleep and realize that you are about to program your subconscious mind. All right? Your subconscious mind is most at home when you are unconscious, when you are asleep. If you spend the last 5 minutes of your day, which so many people do, reviewing all of the things that you don't like, and all the things that didn't work out, and how terrible you feel, and who abused you, and who was mean to you, and who said this, and they did this, and you're constantly doing this kind of thing with your mind, then you are programming your subconscious mind that when you awaken, because you're now about to marinate for the next 8 hours in your subconscious mind. And then when you awaken, you will rejoin the universal subconscious mind, the mind of God, from which we all originate. We're all just individualized personal expressions of that one thing that we call the Tao, or God, or divine mind, or soul, or spirit. But the Tao that can be named is not the Tao. So you want to be real careful about how you program your subconscious mind. This is from the book of Job. In a dream, in a vision of the night, when deep sleep falls upon men, while slumbering on their beds, then he opens the ears of men and seals their instruction. Job 33, 15 and 16. When you are slumbering on your bed, he opens your ears and seals your instruction. What you place into your subconscious mind as you are about to go into this deep slumber is all dependent upon what you do the last 3 or 4 or 5 minutes before you go off to sleep. You want to place into your imagination whatever you have placed into the I am that I spoke about earlier. I am well. I am content. I am peaceful. I am happy. I am prosperous. I am abundant. I am God. I am God. I am God. Because at the basic core, each and every one of us are just that. Okay, so we just have a couple of minutes left. I want to do just it's like if you just close your eyes and just listen to this meditation. It's from the book 3 Magic Words. Here's what I'd like you to say to yourself at night. I know that I am pure spirit, that I always have been, and that I always will be. There is inside me a place of confidence and quietness and security where all things are known and understood. This is the universal mind, God, of which I am a part, and which responds to me as I ask of it. This universal mind knows the answer to all of my problems. And even now, the answers are speeding their way to me. I needn't struggle for them. I needn't worry or strive for them. When the time comes, the answers will be there. I give my problems to the great mind of God. I let go of them, confident that the correct answers will return to me when they are needed. Through the great law of attraction, everything in life that I need for my work and fulfillment will come to me. It is not necessary that I strain about this, only believe. For in the strength of my belief, my faith will make it so. I see the hand of divine intelligence all about me, in the flower, the tree, the brook, the meadow. I know that the intelligence that created all these things is in me and around me. and that I can call upon it for my slightest need. I know that my body is a manifestation of pure spirit, and that spirit is perfect. Therefore, my body is perfect also. I enjoy life, for each day brings a constant demonstration of the power and wonder of the universe and myself. I am confident, I am serene, I am sure. No matter what obstacle or undesirable circumstance crosses my path, I refuse to accept it, for it is nothing but illusion. There can be no obstacle or undesirable circumstance to the mind of God, which is in me, around me, and serves me now. This is the great lesson. Know this within you. When Herman Melville was writing Moby Dick, he wasn't writing about a man looking for a whale. He was writing about a man, Ahab, trying to find his higher self. He said these words, "For as this appalling ocean surrounds the verdant land, so in the soul of man lies one insular Tahiti, full of peace and joy, but encompassed by all of the horrors of the half-lived life." In every moment of your life as you leave here today, you have this choice. You can either be a host to God or a hostage to your ego. It's your call. Thank you. God bless you. Namaste. Thank you.